Really excited about today's session. We're going to give everybody, I do see that everyone is starting to join. Thank you so much. Appreciate you all spending a few minutes with us today. Really excited about today's discussion, talking about that of the Google Business Profile. With that said, today's not about me. Today's about each and every single one of you. And I will say today's a really important topic. And I don't know if some of you were able to see that of the LinkedIn post that I did. I did a quick video and I shared that today's topic is really important. And I say this because, look, even if you're a nationwide business, and I know that there are some groups here that even are not local alarm contractors or fire alarm dealers, as an example, but on behalf of the groups that you work with, these are principles that are really helpful for you. And oh, by the way, even if you've got a regional or national presence, these things are very important because they're key components to that of search engine optimization. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. Keep in mind, over these next few minutes, we're going to share some tools, probably, I suspect, that some of you have never seen before. Some of these are AI-based. Some of these are really cool tools. We'll actually do a couple of live demos. I'm going to show some things that are going to knock your socks off. Also, for those of you that stick around to the end, we have a resource guide that we will share with you. This resource guide is something that I think will be really helpful because there's three aspects to the resource guides, I should rather say, and they will help, and not only with what's your checklist, some of the tools, and what is your step-by-step approaches so that you're in good shape. Because today we have just a very limited amount of time, and I'm going to get through as much information as possible. Today is not about us, but what I will share here is we're very proud members of the associations. As we all know, our industry, is better off with the associations flourishing. So I would highly recommend for you to join that of your local, the groups that, the local and the national relative associations that make sense. Keep in mind the tactics that we're going to talk about today, they basically take customers away from their national counterparts. And one of the things that we have as that of the local alarm contractors is that we're not necessarily, which I'll get to that in just a moment. Really, these are the things that we do. That's not what today's all about. If you would like some help with marketing, I'll have a slide here in a little bit where you can schedule a marketing strategy session, whether it's us helping you with marketing or whether you'd like for us to audit things. But we predominantly do digital marketing for that of security companies. The other things in terms of who we serve, it's the entire industry. So it's alarm dealers, integrators, guard companies, patrol companies, fire alarm companies. We work with the vendors in the space as well. And the good news is we don't work with direct competitors. So if this is something that's of interest, I'd recommend for you to reach out to us to see as to whether we have availability either in your area or on the vendor side in your category or subcategory. For those of you that don't know me, I'm David. I'm the co-founder of SD Marketing. We've been doing this for 14 and a half in March. It'll be 15 years. Time flies when you're having fun. I've been very blessed to speak at the industry's biggest events. And I am honored that each and every single one of you are spending time with me today, with us today. By the way, next month, I'll be able to add to this list. I've not had the privilege and honor of speaking at GSX. I'll be speaking there shortly. If we're not connected on LinkedIn, let's please make sure that we're connecting on LinkedIn. Also, a big thanks to that of Isabella, who is responsible. One of her primary responsibilities is making sure that each and every single one of you have this on your calendar. Isabella, thank you so much. If you'd like to schedule that as a strategy session, this is the QR code to go ahead and do so. With that said, I just want to, couple of final things, and we'll get into that of today's main content. I want to give a big thanks once again to our two sponsors, and that's Recognize and NAPCO. We'll talk about NAPCO here in just a moment. But a big thanks, because without you, this wouldn't be possible. To our good friends at Recognize. Recognize is the leader in AI-based outdoor visual intrusion. So I would imagine most of us here are working with that of video surveillance as an example, or video as a service and things in that regard. Obviously, like when you take into consideration doing things from the perimeter as opposed to all the way back, like all the way in your facility, whether it's for home or for outdoor applications, reach out to our good friends at Recognize to learn more about how they can help you, because they're a complete platform in terms of helping with that of the outdoor security and things in that regard. And then to that of our good friends at NAPCO, I would imagine most of you are familiar with NAPCO, but if you're not, they've been around since 1969. And really, they are an end-to-end platform. I mean, you can utilize NAPCO to run your entire security and fire and life safety business. Um, if you would like to learn more about either Recognize or that of NAPCO, if you can let them know that your good friends at SD Marketing sent you, we would greatly appreciate that because they're, big advocates of the education that we're doing. And really, to us, these webinars are all about giving back to this industry that's given so much to us. And I'm forever grateful for that of NAPCO as well as Recognize for assisting with this. So we're going to go into, well, before we go into this, I'd mentioned that of GSX. If you will be at GSX, I'd love to spend some time together. I'll be there Monday through Wednesday. I believe my business partner will be there as well. I also, on a side note, will be speaking on video monitoring, so AI integration for enhanced security operations. So I'll be speaking with Daniel Forrest, with Alexander Patemba, excuse me, and Kenny Klusman. Uh, we're going to be speaking on a very special day to me, Wednesday, October 1st. For those of you that are connected to me on LinkedIn, you'll know what I'm talking about. This is going to take place Central Time, 9:45 to 10:45. We're going to do a deep dive into remote guarding. What are some of the key vertical market applications? How to best sell this, and this is going to be led by a leading by Pipe Barker, as well as uh, Wiser Security Solutions, which is one of, if not the one of the largest independent security like guard companies throughout the country, and it's also going to be led by that of Daniel Forrest, who's the CEO of Beckler Remote Guarding, and I've got the honor and privilege of interviewing them and speaking with them and walking through this. So if you're at GSX, we'd love to see you there. Okay, I've got just a couple of quick poll questions, and then we're going to get into content here. So give me just a sec here. All right. So this is once again where I'd like for you to get your phones out really quickly, and I'd like for you to scan this QR code. And if you could answer these questions honestly, the first question is, what's your current position in Google's local three pack for your main keyword? Are you lucky because you're 1 through 3? Let's keep it that way, or it's not luck, but it's skill. Are you numbers 4 through 7? It's like so close, but today's session is going to really help to change everything. Or are we not visible? Were we not visible? So if you can answer that or not sure, let's fix that. All right. So let's see here. So if you can all, and I appreciate everyone contribute or adding to that. So if we can just make sure that we'll live this up for just another 5 seconds or so. And this is interesting. So we've got a mixed bag. So yeah, I see here like nearly one in or not nearly one in or I should say a little over half are not sure or not visible. So this is where there's huge opportunities today. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next question. So the next question, and there's only two more, this one and one last one, because I want to make sure we're spending the lion's share of time on the content that we prepared, and we're going to go live onto, I'm going to show you some really cool things. So have you ever analyzed a competitor's Google business profile? So yes, never, once or twice, or didn't even know that it was possible. So let's give you all just a minute or so to answer this. And I really appreciate everyone answering their honest. And by the way, remember, as you're answering these, it's like, look, remember how you answered this and how is it that others are answering this, and how does that compare with you? Remember, this is live data that's occurring here, and I really appreciate everyone. We'll leave this up for another 5-10 seconds. Okay, I see here. So just under half are once or twice out of curiosity, and we even have a little, 14% that didn't know that it was possible. Thank you, I appreciate that. Last question. So what's your biggest challenge when it comes to that of the Google business profile? Is it getting into the three pack? Is it managing everything efficiently, which is time? Time is always our worst enemy. Is it converting profile views into leads? Or is it beating specific competitors who dominate? So what's your biggest challenge? So let's leave this up for another couple moments. I know this one may take a little more time to put some careful thought around that. And I appreciate everyone answering this honestly. So let's give this just another 5 seconds or so. So yeah, this does not surprise me. There we go. Getting into the pack. Gotcha. Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Harvey. I appreciate you sharing that. I'll tell you what, getting into that packet, we're going to show you, as I mentioned, we're going to show you some real live, and the example that I'll show is based in Dallas. So I'm not sure if anyone, without me going back to seeing as to who's on as to whether anyone's based in Dallas, but we'll have some interesting data to share. So I really, really appreciate everyone sharing this. Let me just get out of this, go back here and present this. Go back to the slide. So I really appreciate that. No worries, Harvey. No worries. I appreciate you being here. Okay. So last October, we had our most recent session about this, and we talked about various optimization things and how you may potentially rank better. Whereas today, based on a lot of these tools that we're going to be talking about and some of the advanced type segmentation, we're going to know as to how it is that you can rank better. Because the whole point here in marketing, and I got to tell you, like this goes back to The Godfather, and I've referenced this a couple times, and I hope I don't butcher this too bad, but there's a gentleman by the name of Henry Wanamaker who's known as the Godfather of advertising. And I don't recall if, to be honest, although my business partner will probably say I was alive in those days, so I should know. But like this goes back to like the 1800s or the 1900s, and I appreciate you all not giving me a hard time for probably goofing on the years here. But this is the individual that pioneered advertising in the good old newspaper. I don't know if any of you all remember what I'm talking about with newspapers. And he was coined with saying, half of my advertising works. The problem is I don't know which half. And these are the days whereas it's not like the blind leading the blind, if that makes sense. Like we know what actually works based off of real hard data and things in that regard. So, in terms of like our secret weapon, it's like when we compare ourselves versus that of the nationals and some of the competitors that are in meetings talking about what? They're talking about meetings. We are, and the principles and the tactics that we're going to discuss today will share with you. Will help you so that you can implement and start winning, if that makes sense. And remember, I probably should have had this in all caps. And ironically, this is one of the mantras. This is not what I'm about to share is not about us, but it relates to what we're talking about here. Like our program is called AMP. The A in AMP stands for accelerated. I got to tell you, speed is the name of the game these days. And remember, perfection is the enemy of insert your four-letter word of getting you know what done. Speed, in many cases, can beat size in local search and other things as well. Speed to implementation. And by the way, team, this goes above and beyond that of marketing. Really, really important. Obviously, we don't want to be making mistakes. We want to make sure that we're doing things correctly and things in that regard. But speed is the name of the game. All right. I know we have not covered a ton of things yet, but I want to make sure that we're all still with me. If you're still with me, if you can type one in the chat, I would appreciate that. I just want to make sure I'm not putting everyone to sleep. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that, Chris. Appreciate that, Harvey. Hi, Matt. Thank you. Thank you, Joyce. Troy. And sorry. I won't say your last name. Okay. I'm paying attention now, host and panelist. Thank you. Oh, okay. Well, David, I can't count that high with the number once. Really, really appreciate that. Honestly, you guys are keeping me fired up. And with that said, let's keep going. Okay. So in terms of today's agenda, so there's going to be four high-level things that we're going to be discussing, right? Competitive intelligence, how we legally spy on anyone, any of our competitors. We're going to talk about some advanced tools. And remember, the name of the game, and it's not just me saying that, we've said that, time is our worst enemy. That's key. And what are some of the hidden risk ranking factors and what's our actual game plan and things in that regard? So here's the thing. When have you ever heard the old adage of history repeats itself or, and things in that regard? And I guess let me not get off into too many tangents here. When you go back in history here, when you take into consideration like in 2015 through like 2020, there used to be 7 results in the map. I don't know. Has anyone, if you remember going back, that's nearly 10 years ago. If you remember that, type me. And by the way, I don't want to date anyone here, but type me or yes, I see Dave. I remember. I got to tell you, like the only constant in Google, but not just in Google, is what? It's change. And what's one of the things, remember, Google is generating the lion's share of its revenue from ads. Obviously, Google wants to make sure that its results are as useful and as helpful as possible. And why? Because they want for us, not just us that are here live, but everyone that uses Google to find its results useful and helpful. The key here is back in about 10 years ago, there were 7 companies that are visible. Then in 2020, it went from 7 to 5. Now in 2025, and I believe, without, if my memory serves me correct, this happened last year or the year before, there's only 3 winners. What's tomorrow going to bring? I don't know. What I do know is that methodical and steady marketing wins the race. So when you take into consideration today, we're only showing 3 once again. Now, when we're talking about that of competitive, and let's talk about that of the SPY framework when it comes to competitive intelligence. Every Google business profile, once again, remember, this is your Google listing. It reveals a lot of insights. And by the way, it reveals a lot more than this, but some of the big keys here are, what are the keywords? What is the strategy? What's some of the weaknesses? And where are there opportunities? And by the way, with some of these tools I'm going to show you right here in just a moment, literally, now look, this may take as little as 5 minutes. It may take a little bit longer, but within a matter of mere minutes, you're able to get some of this intelligence. And what's the value of it? It's priceless, because we need to know as to what we're working for. Now, let's talk about, and so these were some of the things where you may want to take some snapshots of this. What are the key elements that we want to analyze? Now, before I get to this list, keep in mind the name of your business. Obviously, that's not something we can change. It's really, really important. Now, with some of the groups that we work with, we've talked with some, we'll call it some Jedi type things that we're in the process of testing right now in terms of that. But like, you have to make sure that you're utilizing your name and it's consistent across all of your local listings, if that makes sense, as well as what's on your website. The other thing is proximity. Geography is really, really important. But where your physical office or your offices are located, there's not anything we can control about that. Now, here's what we can control. What's the primary category? And here's a hint. What are the subcategories? In other words, don't just have one category. But I'm not saying here to stuff and check every single box or select every single one. What are the entire categories that you're using, and in what particular order? These things are really, really important. What are the actual keywords that are within your description? Some of these things are important from the algorithm. And when I say the Google algorithm, I'm talking about what's the recipe, or what are the main ingredients as to why you're showing up in that precious 3-pack on page 1 of Google, of the Google SERP, or the search engine results page. What are the post frequency and what are the topics? I'll give you a clue. Make sure that these topics are relative to that of the services that you have listed within that of your Google business profile. And keep in mind frequency. Remember, I'm going to say this probably multiple times today. Methodical and steady marketing wins the race. Methodical and steady posting wins the race. Methodical and steady analyzing wins the race, et cetera, et cetera. Keep in mind, what's the review velocity? Now, it is really important. We're not going to get too deep into the reviews today, but it's key and critical. Even if, let's just say, for me as an example, let's say that I am not big into doing business with someone based solely on their reviews. In marketing, it's not just about what my thoughts are, it's what does the market dictate? And there are, in fact, some users that only do business with individuals that have certain reviews, but it's not just that, it's Google. Google's analyzing. This is one of their big key factors in terms of their algorithm. So it's important to make sure that as a culture, and I'm talking about from the bottom all the way to the top, it does not matter what your role is in your security company. You are an advocate of that of your security company. And that means getting reviews, because I don't need to ask the question. I already know most of us, a big percent, if it's not number one, it's one of the largest drivers of how we get business. And I'm not just talking about us, I'm talking about all of us here. We're getting business by word of mouth and referrals, if that makes sense. And reviews are a big key when individuals are going to that of our review, to analyze who we are and things in that regard. All those things are really important. Now, by the way, and I'm going to dig a little deeper into this, you want to make sure, and I can probably underscore this and also have this in all caps, respond to every single individual, not by just liking that, but responding to them and doing it in a personalized way. You want to make sure that your service area settings are also things that you're analyzing as well. Okay, so in just a moment, just a minute or two, I'm gonna transition to a demo, and I'm gonna show you all of these specific examples here. Once again, you're gonna want to take some screenshots of some of these things as well. First of all, the tool that I'm going to show you today, it is called GMB Anywhere. And when I said anywhere, I meant everywhere. Excuse me. Uh, it's very simple and easy to use. I'll give you all just a moment to scan this QR code or to take a picture of this, and you can scan this at a later time. But I'm going to go live here to this tool, and I'm going to show you how this works here in just a moment. I'll leave it up for 3, 2, 1. Okay, so let's actually, so before I go, well, let me just quickly go there. Okay, so with once again, when you scan the QR code, it'll take you here. Now, by the way, you do need to use Chrome for this. I don't recall if this is going to be on the other browsers as well, but I would imagine most of us have Chrome, and if not, download it for free. Keep in mind, there is a free version. I'm going to click on pricing just so everyone can see this really quick, but you can investigate this a little more so at your leisure. But there is, in fact, and to be honest, to start off with a free plan. Like you can literally do this within minutes. They do have paid plans, whether you want to pay on a monthly basis or on an annual basis. But let me, instead of me going through all the features, let me actually show you how this works. So if you were to go to on Google and go to the maps area and type in Dallas, Texas, or Dallas TX alarm companies, you're going to see all the results. When you click into the maps, this is what you're seeing. Now, the first 3 results are Dallas Security Systems, Allied Home Security and Alarm Monitoring, and then Smith Thompson Home Security and Alarm Dallas. Now, all of this is fine and dandy. You're seeing some information here, but let's actually, when you click on the local scan, let me show you as to what type of data and insights. So this is the local scan tool, and it gives you a lot of data and insights. So once again, this is for that search for Dallas. Awesome. Thank you, Troy. Appreciate that. And also thank you, Lewis. Appreciate that. Appreciate all of you that have sent just to me directly. Appreciate that. Okay, so there's data points where it will show insights basically as we're analyzing that of our competition based on reviews. And I'm going to actually quickly go through all these. I'm not going to spend too much time. And by the way, if anyone has any questions, feel free to interject them in the chat or the Q&A section as well. And I will do my best to address each and every single one of those as quickly as possible and as directly as possible as well. So we'll talk about reviews, categories, services, location, business hours, attributes, and miscellaneous. And I'll share with you what this means. Okay, so once again, with that specific search, it will let us know based on who's number 1 through 20, what are their, and essentially like what are their attributes. So like, for example, we're in the review section. So like number 1, which is the Dallas Security Systems, they rank number 1 for this particular keyword. They have 128 reviews that have an average review of 4.8. Whereas number 2 is Allied Home Security and Alarm Monitoring Dallas. They have 100 reviews and they have an average star rating of 4.8. Whereas number 3 is Smith Thompson Home Security and Alarm Dallas, is ranked number 3. Now they happen to have a tremendous amount of reviews. If you look at that, and you're not reading that wrong, 5,289. By the way, at the top here, this will give you a high-level dashboard of the top 20. So the average rating is 4.8. The average amount of reviews is 728. The highest rating is going to be 5.0. The lowest, there's someone that actually has a 3.6 rating. By the way, probably hint, if that's one of your competitors, that probably is something that you want to know about. You want to actually read through a review. Why is it that they have that? What is it that they're doing so that when your sales consultants and as you're having conversations with prospects or any of the groups that, anyone that you're taking over for them, you have more data and more of that competitive intelligence, if that makes sense. You want to leverage this so that you're focusing on your strengths. By the way, I don't mean to preach this. I know that you all know this. There is one of the groups here in this top 20 that has only 1 review. And in fact, there's one group that doesn't have any reviews. So keep in mind, this is super, super helpful. So let's talk about the categories. Remember, I talked about categories a couple of minutes ago. And Google Business Profile will allow us to have the primary category and then secondary categories. And I emphasize categories as in plural. Now, by the way, if you want to learn about this, if you want to know which categories they are, now let's talk about the averages, and I'm going to dive deep into this because I think once again, this is really, really, by the way, if you've not seen these types of things, and this is the first time you're like, whoa, um, let's see what word, put a heart in the chat if this is the first time you've seen these types of things before, and these are not things that you're familiar with. I have known this, otherwise I'd put a heart in the chat. Awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate everyone with your emojis and things in that regard. Okay. Thank you, thank you. Okay. So once again, of the 20 businesses, there are 24 unique categories. Now, remember, awesome. Thank you, David. I appreciate that feedback. Maybe Dave, towards the end, if there's like one or two, David, since you've been using this plugin for a year, if as I'm going through this, if there's one or two things that you find to be most insightful for you, if you can just do a quick share in the chat for everyone, I would greatly appreciate it. And I'm sure that the audience would greatly appreciate that as well. So thank you, thank you. Okay, so where I'm going with this, going back to here, is they're showing 24 unique categories. And what does that mean? Potentially there's up to, in fact, 24 categories that we can add to our Google Business Profile, which is in fact one of the, how do I say this? This is one of the ranking factors. We're going to actually talk about which ones here as well. There's three unique, so the primary category of all these 20, there are three unique ones that are being used. It's going to be interesting to see here in just a sec, which you can see here, but we'll get to that in just a moment, which is the primary category that the lion's share of the groups are using. And if that's not, by the way, as you test this with a couple, if that's not your primary category, hint, hint, that is something that we should be strongly considering, if that makes sense. Okay. What's the average number of categories? Now, remember, there's 24 unique ones, but on the average with these with these 20, on the average, there's just over 4 categories that are being used. What does that mean? Not all of your competitors are taking advantage of the things that we're talking about. And how long does it take us to do this? Literally just minutes, and there is no cost to be able to do this. What I will say is the maximum is going to be 9. So of these 20, there's one group that has 9 categories, and the minimum is going to be 1, which obviously that makes sense. So let's talk about this. So let's look at that of who's ranking number 1. Okay, so number 1, Dallas Security is literally just one category, and I suspect they probably are going to be security system supplier, but the lion's share of these are having multiple. So like number 2 is using 4, number 3 is using 6, and so on and so forth. So like number 9 is using 7. So this is interesting, if that makes sense. So of these 20, by the way, 4 of them are using one category. Only there are 3 businesses that are using 2, and so on and so forth. There are, between 7 categories, there's 3 businesses, and there are 3 businesses that are using 6. So let's take a look at the primary categories, and then I'm gonna finish up with the all categories. So remember, with your Google Business Profile, you have your primary category once again, and your secondary categories. And once again, I'm purposely repeating myself, plural. The primary category is security system supplier by nearly 2/3 of them. And then security system installation is going to be for 1/3 of them. And then there's one that is using security service as their primary category, just as an FYI. So let's take into consideration all of the categories. So once again, there are 18 that are using security system supplier. Now, look, I remember a few years back when I started analyzing this, I was like, wait a minute, security system supplier, like that to me leads me to believe like that should be a distributor, right? I don't know if anyone here, and by the way, I don't want to ever embarrass anyone, but like if anyone, like at first, if at first glance, you're like, well, wait a minute, why would I want to refer to myself as like a security system supplier as opposed to what I really do, which is I install? If that's you, type me in the chat, because that's me as well. When I first looked at this once again a few years back, I was like, that didn't make sense to me, but that is just the way that Google interprets things. So, whereas security system installation is going to be 14, And then burglar alarm store is number 9. And I'm going to zip through this because I want to make sure, okay, we're at 10:30 and I've got a few of these other categories that I want to show as well, but I'll just quickly show so you can quickly read through this. Now, remember, not all of us do all of these things, but like even like CCTV, there's only 2 of them that are referencing this. I would imagine every single one of you here that install security as an example, this should be one of the ones that you are focused on. If you do fire, by the way, there's only one of these 20 that has fire protection service, prior fire protection system supplier. Keep in mind, by the way, every single keyword and phrase that has local intent, that has the Google Maps, over time, you want to analyze it based on this, if that makes sense. And you want to make sure that you are being very methodical and very purposeful. Let me go back to, I want to pick up the pace a little bit here. Let's talk about services. So I'm going to really be, I'm going to start zipping through things here. But once again, if you have any questions about this, any clarifying points, please let me know. So once again, there's actually 2 businesses that do not list the services. Wow. Like literally within minutes, you can reference the unique services that you provide. Speaking of unique, there are 356 unique services that are being referenced. On the average, each of these businesses are referencing about 24 and a half services per Google Business Profile. How many do you have in your, this is rhetorical, but how many do you have on that of your Google Business Profile, if that makes sense? And in fact, there's a group that has 82. So let's take a quick peek here. Once again, Dallas Security Systems, they happen to showcase 4 services. And these are the ones that they are referencing, which is interesting and unique. Whereas that of Smith is showing these 10. Once again, Vector is showing this. Let me just take a quick peek here. This Protect Us is showing 74 services and things in that regard. So let me just show you really quick here at a high level. Security cameras installation, general repairs, technical support, home security systems, alarm monitoring, smart home security, residential security. I'm purposely reading these out loud, and I want you to visually, so that you can get an idea as to what are some of the services that you're providing and things in that regard, if that makes sense. So keep all these things take all these things into consideration. Dallas Security Systems, fire alarm support, flyer, so on and so forth. So let me go into the next category here in terms of location. I'll be really quick about this. It'll share with you physically where individuals are geographically based, and things in that regard. Also, business hours. By the way, one of the important things that you want to do is make sure that when you're optimizing, we have to make sure that everything is fully filled out, if that makes sense. That is key and critically important. And by the way, and I'm talking about all of the hours that you work with. I do remember, a good friend of mine said, Dave, we're in the alarm industry. We are 24/7, my friend. So you want to make sure that you keep all these things open. If you are in fact want to be sharing the fact that you're 24/7, I would highly recommend for you to include that as well. When we talk about that of attributes, these are the various things, including like whether you have wheelchair accessibility, whether you have, and these types of things. What are some of the service options that you have? Whether you do online estimates, whether you have language assistance, on-site services, whether you have parking in your facility, whether you identify as like a veteran-owned business, as a woman-owned business, a minority certified business, things in this regard. Keep in mind, these things are really important. You take into consideration all these groups. These are the things that they're referencing. And this is like the blueprint, once again, in terms of these things. So, keep these things in mind. Okay. And then just last but not least on the miscellaneous, we're going to get back to that of our slides. This is just sharing multiple things, including, how many of these groups have, of these 20, how many of them have a website? Obviously, it's no surprise all 20 of them do. How many of them have phone numbers? But I will say this, you would be surprised as to what, and by the way, let me clarify this. It's not just that they have a website, meaning they've listed the website on here, or they've listed a phone number. They actually allow for online appointments. They have the full address. Can you believe that there's actually one group that does not have the full address? You got it. I won't reference you by name, but thank you very much, and I appreciate your feedback. Also, a lot. My point being here is there is one of these 20 that does not claim their business. It does not, I mean, these are things that if you've not claimed your Google business profile, please, please, please do this right now today. Okay, let me jump back to that of slides really quickly, and I'm going to just zip through things because I know we've got about just over 20 minutes left. So here's the thing, like you take into consideration the phrase alarm systems near Los Angeles, California. These are the three that are showing up in the maps when you do that particular search. You want to make sure that keep in mind, I'd reference the fact that this is just one phraseology, if that makes sense. So let's see here. Thank you, Mark. So Mark says, okay, in some locations are UPS store PO boxes. Okay, so this one's a little controversial. Okay, let me, if you don't mind, Mark, let me take a step back and explain what you mean by this. So some of us, I'm going to answer this question directly. So the question is, can we use like a UPS box or a PO box as a Google business profile? The short answer to your question is yes, you can. However, if you take a look at Google's TOS or their terms of service, that is a direct violation of that terms of service. Now, keep in mind, there are, I don't know the exact number, but there are tens of millions, and I may be off, but the fact is there are millions. I don't know as to whether there's several million or tens of millions of Google business profiles that are out there. There's a lot of them, and it's in the millions. And does Google have the physical man/woman power to manually check all these? No. Keep in mind they have AI and they have their algorithm that checks for these things. Google knows the address of the post office. Google knows the address of the UPS stores and other related type groups. You may be able to get away with things temporarily. However, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, especially for those of us that are, because the one thing we don't want to do is we don't want to do what's referred to as these black hat techniques. You don't want to be gaming the system because you don't want for Google to, you don't want to get on Google's naughty list. It is not fun. It is not easy to get off that list, if that makes sense. So getting back to your question, it is illegal. I have seen others do it. I would not recommend it. It will potentially boost you because remember proximity. Now, I will say this for those of us that are looking to get our office or that are looking to potentially move their office, you want to, all things being equal, and I won't name names, but I've had a conversation with a good friend of mine, and he's in one of the top, I think like top 20, 30 markets in the country. And where he's physically based is in the unincorporated zone of the city. It's not realistic for him to move his office because he's got deep roots and he's got a very large presence, like a very large facility, things in that regard. But what we have, one of the things that we uncovered is that where you're physically based, in other words, like where your plot or your dot is in the map, that's important. It's not the only factor, but it is important. Now, there are other things that can be done to help you in that regard, of course, as well, but it is important. So hopefully, Mark, that answers your question. So it can be done, but I wouldn't recommend it. Keep in mind, like, you want to make sure that you're identifying what are all the services that you provide, what are the keywords and phrases that are showing up in the maps, and then ultimately what we want to do is we want to make sure that we are doing this type of competitive analysis and research, making sure that we're optimizing that of our Google business profile specifically towards that of the what am I trying to say here? We want to make sure that we are just putting ourselves in that best position in terms of that, so that we're optimizing and things in that regard. And then ultimately, we want to make sure that we have those categories. We have, the Google page posts, meaning we're posting content and we're specifically focused on those related things and things in that regard. Okay. So, I'm not going to reference you by name, but someone asked me the question, who can we work with to help get a location verified in a new market to be expanded to? So if that's something, and I won't reference you by name, but I would be happy for us to help you with that at no cost. If you want to reach out to me and or to Isabella, And if you're okay, if you want to send me a note, if you're okay for me to have Isabella reach out to you, if you don't have our contact info handy, I'd be happy to do so. But what you can also do is go to Google and go through the actual steps. Okay, I'm not going to say you by name, but with a big smiley face, only if you let me buy you a drink. I almost said your name. You got it. I'm okay with that. I won't. Well, this is water, but I won't make a joke. But yes, you had me a drink. I'm just kidding. You got it. So I'll make sure, Isabella, please remind me to make sure that we follow up with this particular individual. Okay. And then I'm not going to reference you by name. Okay. So I've gone through okay. So this is, I won't reference you by name, but, okay. I've gone through the process of optimizing my company's GBP. For example, I add service and then link to them. And then, sorry, we've got a number of comments that are coming in here. So okay. So I've had a number of, okay. So, I add services and then link to my pages, but it seems that posting frequently in my Google Business profile doesn't make any significant difference. So here's the thing, and I'm not going to reference you by name, is keep in mind it is all of these things put together. Remember, it's like 2 plus 2 plus 2 equals what? 6? But it's kind of like 2 times 2 times 2 equals what? 4, 8? Or it's like 2 times 2 times 2 equals 24 as an example. I know that's not correct, but you know what I mean. My point being here is it's not just it's all of these things put together. And if you would like, I'd be happy to. And there, once again, I keep wanting to share reference you by name, but out of respect, I won't because it's the host of the panelist. If you'd like to have an offline discussion, I'd be happy to have an online offline discussion. There's no obligation. I'd love to talk some shop with you in terms of this. And we can discuss this a little bit more in detail in terms of I can take into consideration what's your flow, what are you doing, and I can identify some things that you can do and your team can do. If you'd like to, once again, send me a note or let me know, and then I'll make sure that Isabella works with you to get a time scheduled. Okay. Okay. Once again, just I won't reference you by name. Uh, okay. So thank you for doing this today. I know I know now what the telemarketers are always calling me about when they say your Google Business profile has not been updated. I had no clue. Okay, I won't reference you by name, but yes, I got to tell you, just on a quick side note, I have individuals that are reaching out to me saying we can optimize your website, optimize this. It's just, yes, unfortunately, that is the case. Okay. So let's talk about this stuff offline. I'm glad that with one of you, you referenced that you're number 3 in the map, which is great, but we always want to be striving for number 1, of course. But the fact that we're number 1, because when you get to numbers 4 and beyond, it makes things really, really difficult. And the key here is, as we're analyzing our competitors, what are they doing that we're not? In some cases, we can be doing all the right things, and it still makes things. This is where there's some things that go above and beyond this that we can share with you and things in that regard. Okay, so question is, any recommendations when the services are global at all, or global at all, or different levels, like for a manufacturer, integrator, end user? So is your question, if you're not a local business, in other words, like let's just say on the vendor side, is that what your question is, more geared towards that, or is your question geared towards, I'm not going to reference you by name, but if you can clarify that, I'll address that in just a moment. I'm going to keep moving forward. I know we're running short on time. So some of these things I'm going to zip through really quickly. There is a weekly routine. If you want to snap through some of these, by the way, and Isabella, can either you or one of the members of my team on chat just confirm with me that we are good to go with the checklist? That would be great. But because the one thing I will share with you, everyone, is that we've got an exhaustive checklist that literally goes into a lot more depth with all of these things that we will share with you. And there's no, there's no obligation or what have you with that. So in terms of some of the advanced tactics, so in Bright Local, Bright Local is one of the other tools. One of the other tools that we use and that we recommend as well. It basically allows you to have this type of like heat map, so to speak. So let's just say, for example, in this particular case, in the outskirts of Chicago, for this specific keyword and phrase, this screenshot is showing what ranking you are, and you'll notice here in this area, like the closer you are to the proximity is generally speaking, where you are where you're ranked and things in that regard. But it allows you to, excuse me, to find geographic weakness. You'll notice here as you go further out, it's tougher and tougher to be there because geography is one of the big keys. But what it does is when you put all of these insights together, it gives you the clues as to what things can be done. Now, keep in mind there is a free trial with Bright Local. Once again, we're not like an affiliate or what have you of them, but it's as little as $29 per month for this tool. And it provides a lot of other insights besides this and things in that regard. It also allows you to power that of your Google business profile as well. Okay, so like the other thing to take into consideration here is the freshness factor. We want to make sure that we have the Google algorithm update. Keep in mind, and I know that it was just referenced by one of the individuals here. In some cases, keep in mind we have to see what your competitors are doing, and it's not necessarily are they pushing out content. What is the content that's being pushed out? Because remember, not all content's created equal. And with that of these, they're technically like little mini blogs that I'm referencing. They're little mini blogs that I'm referencing, number one. Number two, they're referred to as Google page posts. They're limited to 1,000 characters, including spaces and things in that regard. Ideally, what we want to do is we are posting once to twice per week. And the good news is, as you get in a role, because remember, 1,000 characters is not a long thing. And I would recommend to do these in bulk so that you can do these in bulk. I don't mean to deploy them all in bulk, but to do them in bulk when you're in that mindset so you can get them done more quickly and things in that regard. We want to make sure that we are also including that of zip codes, not just the cities. Also make sure we're adding neighborhood names. Want to reference landmarks. Want to make sure, like, remember, we're local from the community for the community. We want to make sure that we're casting a wider net than that of our competitors. Okay. All right. So the individual that I was referencing earlier says, yes, our services reach various levels that are not specific to a local outreach. So keep in mind, for those of us that are not local intent and we're national, whereas what we're talking about specifically is about the local markets, your Google business profile is still important because it is like your Google listing. And even though you're national, you want to make sure you have everything filled out. It's just you're not going to be adding like the Dallas, the Los Angeles, things in this regard. You want to make sure you have things properly filled out and things in that regard as well. So hopefully that answers your question. I keep wanting to say your name, but I won't in good faith. Okay. There are, in fact, like AI efficiency tools. And some of these tools, by the way, in the checklist, I'm not going to talk about them now because we don't have time for that. But in our checklist, we will actually share with you some of these things because you can have competitor tracking alerts. You can also have review, monitoring, automation, and automated reporting and things in that regard. The other thing is it's important to make sure that we have like the psychology is of it's important to make sure that we have these various signals and factors within that of our Google business profile. Like, I want to make sure we have these because these show trust for that of security buyers. That's where like the reviews are really important. Having everything filled out is really important. Having that average response time really low is really important because Google, as well as your potential customers, they want to make sure that that's the case. And by the way, even on your website, we want to make sure we have that social proof placement as well. Because ultimately what we want to do is we want to convert lurkers into callers or to users that are filling out forms, things in that regard. Some of the quick wins here is we can basically, for free, install that Google, the GMB Everywhere extension. Want to analyze that of your number one competitor. What are they doing that you're not doing? What are some, and identify like 3 keywords or phrases that you can reference, things in that regard. We want to make sure that we have 3 keyword gaps. We want to make sure that we're posting once or twice. Ideally, you're posting once or twice per week, but let's see as to whether you can start this week. Make sure that you're setting a Monday maybe perhaps it's on Mondays, maybe it's over the weekend, maybe it's on Friday. Create your routine because remember, it's just like exercise. It's just like, diet. It's not like a sprint, it's a marathon. Make sure that this is a part of and if it's not you, it can be a member of your team to be able to continue to monitor and check these types of things, if that makes sense. In terms of the 90-day plan, and I'm going to zip through this because we have these on our resource tabs. But when I say resource tabs, meaning the resource checklist that we're going to send to you. but there's basically phases that you can do by week and things in that regard in terms of like your timeline. And when we talk about like from the intelligence perspective, that of we're talking about that of competitor intelligence audit. We want to audit that of of ideally at least three companies. We want to make sure that we're installing all the tracking tools. And by the way, this goes even to like the Google, like your Google Search Console, as well as your Google Analytics. You want to make sure that those are on your website because you're going to make sure that you're able to measure all of these things and identify what are some of the top keyword gaps. Where are there opportunities for improvement, if that makes sense? And then you want to make sure this is really important as well is you want to have a good baseline. Like when we speak with the groups that we're working with, it's like, what's the baseline? And then over time, it goes without saying, but we want to be seeing improvements. And if we're not seeing improvements, why? And what's being done about that? If that makes sense. This will ultimately require a little more time in terms of setting all these things up. But once you have these things set up, a lot of these things are going to be capital expenses in terms of your time and things in that regard. Once we get into like phase two towards that of like, we'll call it like the attack phase, so to speak, we're going to be posting once to twice per week. We're going to be identifying keyword gaps, additional keyword gaps, optimize for that of missed service areas and implement that of a review campaign. And by the way, I would say we even want to implement this review campaign immediately, like now, like today, if you don't have one. And then when we get into like the phase three, we can scale what's working. In other words, what's working, let's put more efforts behind that. And now ideally we're expanding to even more keywords and phrases, and basically looking to lock out some of that of our competitors. So when you take into consideration this, if you want to take a quick snapshot of this, ultimately the goal here is we transition from you looking at your competitors to them looking at you, if that makes sense, once you implement that of these solutions that we're talking about here. So I'm gonna skip through this, and I'm gonna skip through this as well. If anyone has any questions, I know we only have just a couple more minutes. We will have, okay, so here's a question here. Okay, I'm not going to reference you by name. So how do you get indexed and pop up in Google's AI overview? I'm in the top 3 of the Google PAP, but I'm not showing up in the AI overview. Okay, so I almost said your name, but I'm not going to do it. Okay, this is a really, really good question. I'm going to briefly answer this, although one of our upcoming sessions will be on this. This is actually not just on Google, but I think everyone here is familiar with SEO, which stands for search engine optimization. But there is another optimization, which is called AEO or GEO, which is answer engine optimization or generative engine optimization. In other words, Google's AI overview and ChatGPT and the LLM models having that overview. So if you haven't ever heard of AEO or GEO, type a 2 in the chat. I just want to see, I'm just curious, like if you would like in one of our, and thank you, I appreciate that, Chris and Troy and Joy and Jill, and I know a few of you are referencing to just hosted panels. If this is something that you'd like to learn more about in an upcoming webinar, type me in the chat. It is something that we are heavily, awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that, Troy. Okay, now I see all. Okay, awesome. Well, Judy, that's really kind of you. Thank you. Joyce and Mark and Sebastian and Jack, thank you all. I appreciate that. And to all of you that are just sending things to, well, that's very kind of you. Thank you, Judy. I appreciate that. This will be it's not going to be our next session, but I suspect this will be before the end of the year. We will cover that. It is one of the things that we're having deep conversations with our customers about. I'm going to get back to answering this question here in just a sec, but I appreciate that feedback. I think, Isabella and Sebastian, this will be something that we're going to want to talk about a little later this year. I think this is a really important. Okay, so getting back to this, it's interesting, and I know that we're almost out of time, so I'm sorry, I'll be really quick. So what I will say is to get indexed into the AI overview, you have to think differently. Think like the AI overview himself. They're answering questions differently. It is answering things like more at the top of the funnel. Okay, so let me try and explain this without being super long-winded. It's like this is where getting one of the things that I will share is to get into these these AI overviews. You want to basically position yourself as a trusted resource, and I underscore trusted resource that is very knowledgeable and has access to all these things, and et cetera, et cetera. And you want to be answering those questions. It's like, keep in mind the PA, I know we didn't cover that today, but the people also ask. You want to make sure that you're answering those types of questions, things in that regard. Um, I know I'm not going to get too deep in answering these questions, but there is a way to show up in there. And the key here is you've got to answer those questions. Think like, so there needs to be content that's created that positions you as the trusted authority, that advisor, that, who the who the audience knows, likes, and trusts. And you've got content that's directly answering those questions, if that makes sense. I need to get a lot deeper into this, but I can't do that in the next minute or so, if that makes sense. So let's see here. Awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. Found a plugin that adds FAQs to websites. I use AI generative and the FAQs and the content AI. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Judy. I appreciate that. That's very, very kind of you. Okay. So to download bonuses, scan this QR code here, and you can download all those bonuses there. I'm going to leave that up for another 5 seconds or so because I want to announce our next session really quick. Perfect. I'm going to leave this up for another 5, 4, 3. Okay, are the index practices the same for SEO, or are they different tools to get? Okay, so I'm going to get a little deeper. I'm going to touch on that briefly. If you'll bear with me just for a moment. Thank you, and I appreciate that, Judy. Thank you for sharing that resource for everyone. If you would like to schedule a meeting with us, here's the QR code to do so. And I'm going to leave that up for another 3 seconds, and I'm going to talk about our next webinar that we're going to do. And then I'm going to address the question that was just shared about best practice or indexing best practices here in just a moment. Okay, so I want to just quickly announce as we're wrapping things up, and then I'll have some time for just a couple minutes for some Q&A. We're going to be doing a deep dive into your security website, and we want to, I want to make sure that we're in good shape here. We are going to discuss some advanced website design and conversion strategies. It's going to take place on September 16th, which is just under a month away. Really look forward to seeing each and every single one of you. Please RSVP for this today. Like, if you've received value from today, type a 1 in the chat. I would greatly appreciate that. And I'm going to also type 1 in the chat because you guys have been inspirational to me, and I really appreciate all the feedback. Like, this is really, really, and thank you. I'm not going to reference you all by name, but thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I really, really appreciate that. So if you've not, so what I'm going to do is let me stop sharing. And then let me just address these questions really, really quickly. I know some of you may have to drop, but I want to address these questions really quickly. If you have any additional questions, type them in the chat and I'll do the best I can. So let me get back to the question. Okay, so are the index practices the same as SEO, or are there different tools to get you indexed in the AI overview? So the short answer is I don't know. So the best practices are yes, but there are things that we're still uncovering, so to speak, if that makes sense. What I mean by that is, from our preliminary research, it's having that omnipresence, having others linked to you, having, like, being a good trusted resource, making sure that the content that we have on our website is very expansive. We have unique pages for all the things that we do. We have an effective blog that is not just blah, 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 blah. That's like, hey, ChatGPT, write a blog about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, that is, you do not want, I mean, that's another conversation for a different day in terms of AI. And that'll be one of the upcoming sessions that we'll be leading as well. But you want to make sure that you have authoritative, comprehensive, that are almost like the equivalent of, like, when I say, don't take me literally, like dissertations, but you want to have those types of things that are positioning you as that go-to resource, as that expert. And you want to have others that are talking about you as well, things in that regard. Okay, so let me keep going down here. Thank you, Harvey, if you're still here. Appreciate your kind words. Thank you, George. Thank you, everyone else. Let me just see if there's any additional questions. Otherwise, we can wrap things up. Okay, awesome. Thank you, Neil. I appreciate your kind words, my friend. I look forward to seeing you soon. Okay, so as we wrap things up, I know there's some of you that are still here. I'll let you get back to your day. Um, my daughter's going to laugh at me because I'm going to do a bad one of these, but like, thank you. You guys mean so much to me. You make all this hard work that we do worth it. This is not about us. This is about you. Any feedback, really appreciate all of the emojis and all the kindness that you guys are doing. Any things that we can do to make improvements, any feedback that you have, please let us know. We can, we always want to be making improvements, and these are all about you. So until next time, make it a great day, and I look forward to seeing you at an upcoming event or seeing you online on LinkedIn. Thank you so much.